Hi, this is Misha, and I've got a couple of new products from Mossberg, or as my father always called them as I was growing up, Mossberg. Seriously, I thought there was an extra syllable in that word for 20 years because of him. And it's interesting, I've had these up on Gunbroker a bit, and people were emailing me saying, "Oh, are these guns that you put wood stocks on?" Even though I actually have the Mossberg part numbers in the auctions, still they just really haven't come out yet, and there aren't really any YouTubes on, so I thought we would talk about both. We've got a 500 and a 590A1, and because we were out at the range, we decided just to run a few rounds through the 500. So there that was being shot. It is a shotgun. It is a 12 gauge shotgun. It shot fine, as you saw, no issues. It is surprisingly smooth for a relatively inexpensive shotgun. And the recoil is fine, you know. The furniture does help. So what do we have here? Well, this is the 500 model. This is a M590A1 model, and these are under their new Retrograde, or just Retro series, so they're kind of going for that classic 60s, 70s military police look with these. They're just a classic look in general. We have a basic 500 here with a relatively high gloss blued finish. I don't think I'd want it much higher because then it'll show marks more and really be shiny, but it's respectable for a $400 gun. We have an 18-inch barrel with a simple bead sight, as you see here. This is rated for 12 gauge, 2 3/4, and 3-inch Magnum. And of course, the real star of the show is the furniture. This is walnut, buttstock, and forearm. As you see, the forearm is the very traditional corncob type, which I aesthetically find appealing, and it was actually a very usable pump. You can really get your hand wrapped around it. Solid wood. And that is paired with a walnut stock. Pretty traditional, pretty no frills. We do have a little bit of checkering here on the grip. The grip is reasonably large, good, comfortable. We have a little bit of inletting here on the cheek rest, pretty typical. Wood here, and then we have a very traditional recoil pad, the corrugated type, which is very effective. And finally, a lot of 500s don't have sling swivels. This does. It has a stud here in the stock. And we've got a stud at the front of the barrel cap, barrel nut. So it does have sling swivels. I always like that. And we have a 5+1, so 6 round capacity. So one more than most of your Remingtons. And that is about it. Like I said, a simple bead sight. We are drilled and tapped on top of the receiver here. Nothing comes, but there are already holes with screws in them. You can remove those to install a rail or ghost ring sight. We have typical Mossberg ambidextrous tang safety. We have the typical release here. Standard trigger. The trigger is actually pretty darn nice on this one. And we have typical Mossberg. One thing I did notice, the follower is metal in this, not plastic. It's kind of nice. A lot of your Remington Expresses are plastic. But on the other hand, we still have a plastic trigger guard and a plastic safety. Kind of wish they'd at least done a metal trigger guard. think that really would have capped it. Or if they put on a heat shield, because they have a blued heat shield. In fact, I might try to source a heat shield to drop on this one, since I probably will just hang on to it. I've always had a thing for Mossbergs. So this gun here is what I would consider in a riot configuration, riot shotgun. Riot guns usually have anywhere from 18 to 21 inch barrels and have been used by police for umpteen years, probably over a century now, and also by our U.S. military. Yes, the trench gun gets kind of all the glory, but the military has picked up a lot of riot guns over the years, and they are used for, you know, like outposts, security, prisoner guarding, even sometimes just sport shooting on base. So they definitely have some basic bead sight, standard capacity magazine riot guns in the military. And this is a good example because the military started picking up Mossbergs in late Vietnam, and they would have picked up something very, very similar to this, designating it as the M500. Now later they would do a modified version of this gun here with metal trigger guard and metal safety, but otherwise unchanged. Standard weight barrel, bead sight. In fact, some of these, like this, possibly with different furniture today, are still in service today, although most of the time their blued finish has either been reparked or it has just been kind of in the white, because these things get used a lot. Really just carried around, and they're shotguns. Well, that's the 500. That probably bored you. This is the one you probably want to hear about. This is its big brother, the M590A1 Retrograde. And this really does have a traditional trench gun, and this is decked out. And these are also pretty pricey. The 500s are about 400 bucks. These are going for about 700, but you do get quite a bit with that. And we have the same furniture set, corn cob, wood stock with corrugated pad, sling swivel down here. You have a sling swivel that, when it comes in the box, is mounted to the end of the cap here, which I don't really care for. On my guns, I relocate it to this hole here. If you see here, it'll screw right in there, and that's where I prefer the sling swivel on my 590A1s. But you have choices. You can locate your front swivel. So what else do we have? Well, like most 590A1s, we have a 20-inch heavy wall barrel. It's mostly thicker back here, a little bit up here. It is a fixed choke. It's not their IQ choke on this. They do an 18-inch, not in the Retro series, at least not yet, but in the 590A1 series, they do have an 18-inch, but 20 is pretty much the quintessential. To go along with the long barrel, we have a single-piece magazine tube, which is an 8+1 capacity, so a total of 9 shots. One major difference between the 500 and the 590 and 590A1 is how the barrel is attached. The nut on the 590A1 and 590 is a separate piece here that unscrews. I'll get this one off if it's not too stuck. If it isn't. The reason they did this was to make cleaning the magazine tube easier. I'm just going to set this down, folks. Yeah, this one's new out of the box, so there we go. Shows you guys these aren't loose, huh? They will loosen up over time, but you can also dog it down pretty good. Let you see that there. See, it's got a little clip inside. You can easily remove that with a pair of snap ring pliers to get to your magazine tube to clean it or replace the spring. And of course the barrel just slides up and out as on most any other shotgun. So that's a pretty typical connection method you see in like Remingtons. Just to compare, on this here 500, it's a little different, and my sling swivel's in the way, so yeah. Just attach this real quick. Whoop. See, that unscrews very similar, but I need to cock this a bit. You see the nut stays in the barrel, and the end of our mag tube is solid except for that hole for the screw. This was the original pattern for the 500. So it has the benefit of only coming apart with two pieces, and you're not really going to lose your nut. But on the other hand, it's more difficult to get inside your magazine tube for cleaning. So the military went to the Mossberg rather, developed the 590A1 pattern to better suit police and law enforcement users. But the trade-off is you have one piece that could potentially get lost. So kind of a trade-off. Anywho, back to the A1, guys. So we've got the heavy wall barrel. We've got the 9-shot capacity. Great. This is also 12 gauge, 2 3/4, 3 inch. We have one more feature here. We have a bayonet lug. This takes a standard U.S. military bayonet, so M7 or M9. We have their ghost ring sights. The front is a simple blade here. It's risen off the barrel a reasonable amount. It is windage adjustable. In the back, we actually have a pretty nice ghost stringer. Yeah. Simple, quite large peep with protective ears. And this is adjustable as well. This one is screwed on using those drilled and tapped holes to the receiver. Boop. And the front one is soldered onto the barrel. We have other 590A1 features. Metal safety, metal trigger guard. Now, I don't know exactly what kind of metal, but they're metal. The receivers on Mossbergs are aluminum alloy, just like on an AR-15, but your barrel and your bolt are, of course, steel. Speaking of bolt, we have dual extractors, so in case one fails. And oh yeah, one other little thing, a heat shield. This is something people have been asking Mossberg to put on a 590A1 for 15 years. When we put out a video about 5 years ago showing my standard 590A1 with the bead sight and heat shield, people actually didn't believe that it was original. They were questioning if it was maybe a 590 because Mossberg has offered a 590 and even a 500 with a heat shield forever. The problem is the heavy wall barrel of the 590A1 means that those heat shields will not fit, at least properly, on a 590A1. You can modify them to fit, but then you're kind of stretching them out. So basically these need their own heat shield to be correct, and I'm always a big fan of doing things the right way. Now for my older gun, I ordered a few from a police supplier and installed them myself. I think I bought 3 or 4, and a family member wanted one, and some friends and a customer, so I just bought a few and put one on my gun. And they basically they're spring steel. They have clips back here, and then they're bolted on up here, and they're very secure. Not only do heat shields frankly look cool, they really are handy, because when you have been firing it a lot and flip it over, or just grab the barrel in general, it really does do a fantastic job of protecting you from any built-up heat, especially while you're reloading. And I want to talk about reloading before we go. If you've noticed, I tend to prefer the Mossberg designs over the Remingtons. That's for several reasons, but one key one is how you load these. If you notice, the elevator, the shell lifter, is in the up position. When your bolt's forward, it's up. Only when your bolt is all the way back does the lifter come down. The benefit there is you can really easily reload on the fly. Pretend my finger's a shell, my thumb or something. You just push it in. There's no resistance from the lifter. You don't have to worry about pushing it up. And you can easily check, feel to see if you still have a shell. And maybe it's because I have a little small on the hand side. Sometimes with some elevators and some guns, Benellis come to mind, especially the older ones, I could get kind of pinched by the front part of the elevator. That's not really a concern with the Mossberg. I'm just comfortable with it. I also really like the location of the tang safety, with the caveat that it works great for straight stocks or field stocks or semi-pistol grip stocks like this one, as does the release here. You just can squeeze it. Your finger is way behind the trigger and the trigger guard. But for a pistol grip gun, these controls are much less optimized. So if you need a pistol grip gun, I still recommend a Remington, frankly. But if you have a standard stock, I like that. I don't really care where the Remington controls are at, because you have to kind of reach around your trigger guard, and either way it's safe, but I just feel better this way. Well, that is pretty much the retro guns. What they did is they took a standard 590A1. They do offer these with ghost ring sights. They put the wood furniture on, and they put the heat shield on. So $700 plus does seem like a lot of money, but if you were to get this gun, just standard synthetic furniture and bead sights, no heat shield, it would be at least $500, maybe $550 new. Well, wood furniture costs, so let's chunk on an extra $50 to $100 for that. I can tell you for a fact these heat shields, if you go to buy them, are at least $100 because of how difficult they are to get. So we're looking at $150 to $200 there. And then ghost ring sights. Obviously these aren't as expensive as the Wilson ones that Remington uses, but they are not cheap. So you're looking at $25 to $50 there. So all in all, you're looking at about a $200 to $250 upgrade package. So this $700 price point seems reasonably fair to me, but full disclosure, I really like this as a kind of a classic military trench gun. The military started using trench guns in World War I. The 20-inch barrel was common. The bayonet, lug, and heat shield are also very common, although not all trench guns had them. And the 500, like I said, was started to be used in late 1960s by the military. The 590A1, the M590, really seems to come into use in the 90s. The earliest ones had simple bead sights, heat shields, usually, but not always. But more recent production, probably right after the Benelli M1014, the Benelli M4, was adopted, the military started ordering Mossbergs with the ghost ring sights as well. So this is pretty darn close to what the military uses, except for the wood furniture. Modern guns, of course, would be polymer. But, you know, you can always replace it, and I'm sure someone would be happy to buy the wood off of you. Or, you know, go for that retro look. And even this riot gun, I think is pretty neat. You don't see many blued guns anymore. The wood furniture is nice. And I like that it has the sling swivel studs. Again, a lot of your cheaper guns don't have any studs, or sometimes they just have one stud, which I always found was weird. But you see that quite frequently. Just one stud on a gun. These are smooth, reliable, simple, durable guns. And one final thing I do like about Mossbergs, they are still made in America. The Mavericks were made down in Mexico. I don't know if they still are. I don't really keep track of the Mavericks. But the actual Mossbergs are still made here in the USA using American labor and American components. So I think that's pretty neat, especially at their current price point. Oh yeah, obviously this has a parkerized finish, a phosphated finish, guys. So Figured you could see that, but might as well mention it before end of the vid. Well, if you enjoy shotguns, check on our playlist. We do have quite a few others. We also like Benellis around here, and we have some on Remingtons. If you have any questions or comments, do post them below and we'll get to you as quick as we can. If you'd really like to help support the channel, let us get out and shoot even more, please click on the link and check out our Patreon page. And as always, this is Misha, and we will catch you next time.